There's simply no getting around this ugly loss, this tough loss. You saw it, I saw it, the bench certainly felt it, and I think the most disappointing thing after this significant loss, 82-58, was the lack of effort. Something I'm sure we all witnessed, and I'll get to that in my second of my 3 takeaways following this one. But to start, it has to go back to what we talked about in the pregame. Nightmare fuel for Coach Kim Caldwell. Of course, she said it in a lighthearted manner when she's like, I kind of get PTSD thinking about going up against Georgia Moore and Clara Strack because of what that duo did to her in the postseason when she was at Marshall. Ended her campaign. I think it was about a 50-point loss that she suffered against then Virginia Tech a year ago. Kind of a similar result here. And just like last time, in as many meetings, Clara Strack is perfect in her efforts. Last time it was 7 of 7. Tonight it was 11 of 11 from the field. She was 1 of 1 from the 3-point line. This time, no free throw attempts, but she had 23 points on the night. Add on to that, and that'll get to my point later, she had 15 rebounds in this game. Unreal what she was able to do, and what was more impressive about her effort, it wasn't that like she was shutting down one player. Tennessee threw like 3-4 people at her. She had an answer for all of it. And she talked after the game that in a game where it's high possession and you know it's going to be a fast game, you know you're going to get your chance, you just have to convert. Absolutely unreal what she was able to do. No answer for her, no answer for Georgia. And then when you get to the head coach, and probably a lot of what we were thinking if we listened to my pregame report, is they knew exactly what to expect. Kenny Brooks says that they went, because he was a head coach at Virginia Tech with those 2 players now here. He says, we have experience with that system and going up against it. We practiced to that. We knew what to expect and we executed. The team was like so happy with how they won this game because they almost kind of were like, we predicted it, it became predictable, and then we executed out on the court. This team moving forward has got to find a way to avoid these touchdown type plays where they're up in the press and then the backcourt is just completely empty. They have got to find a way to limit those opportunities because so many times this game we saw where they're up in the press and they're, almost crashing, bringing 3-4 girls up in the front of the press and then no man's land for their teammates trying to block or guard a potential fast break and transition type of layup. That they have to fix. But then to my second point, the lack of effort. Kim Caldwell says she's not burning this tape. Nope, they are watching it in slow motion, and they probably should. I asked Samara Spencer afterwards, I'm like, I know it's kind of a funny comment by Kim, but like, when you do watch it in slow motion, what are you going to be thinking about? And she says she's going to be disappointed in the effort. You could look over to the bench and they just all looked so dejected. They had such long faces. And I think that goes to the very first quarter of this game. And from there, I think it snowballed. 9 points in the first quarter. That was just the second time in SEC play where they were held to single digits in a single quarter. Last time was 5 points against Vanderbilt. They lost that game though by 1 point. And Kim said like, that quarter wouldn't have been that big of a deal if we were able to then go get stops, but they weren't able to get stops. They weren't able to get anything going on offense. They couldn't slow them down in the press, and then they had no answers when it was their ability to get to those second chance points. And that was a huge thing that I think led to that lack of effort because they were so severely out-rebounded in this game. Coming into this game, twice Tennessee was out-rebounded by a 15-point margin. One against Iowa, the other against Texas. Tonight, it was about 20 was the margin, and Kentucky made them pay. They had about 20 points to, go with those rebounds that they had on the offensive end for their second chance points that killed Tennessee in the first quarter where they had 7, and the game was as close as it probably was going to be the rest of the way. So Tennessee's lack of effort showed up in all 3 phases of the game. They took a play off because they were upset that they couldn't get something going on offense. They, take a play off because they get beat in the press, and then they get, take a play off because they get beat on the glass. They'll say it's size, and I'm sure that was, say, let's give them 10 rebounds because of the size disadvantage. But there were a number of Wildcats that were on that team that were about the same height as the Lady Vols players. So Is size the whole thing? No. Did they keep the ball, out of reach? Yes. But the amount of times that it didn't matter where the ball fell and they just weren't able to go get there, that's what's concerning. The lack of effort is what is concerning in this game, and something that the team says that they'll certainly harp on, because coming into this game, it was all about resiliency. It was all about having mental maturity, mental toughness. They need that in the SEC play, and they need that in this system where it is high possession. So you're going to have, percentage-wise, a lot more failures because of how fast you play, how many possessions you have. And then that kind of gets to Talaysia Cooper. I remember towards the end of the game looking over to the bench, and she's literally dousing herself in Gatorade water because she is trying to put the game on her back. But we cannot, third point, cannot have Talaysia Cooper do it all. I mean, she had 25 points that led the game and team in scoring, and she was in the top 3 categories in the rebounding and assists and in scoring. She had 2 3-pointers, which is kind of crazy. I don't even think she averages 1 on the season. So she really was trying to do it all tonight, but you just can't put it all on one person. And that kind of got to when Samara Spencer was like, we just weren't good teammates tonight. And you could see that there was no support really on the court, that it was hard to be good teammates on the bench because you see how dejected they are and they don't really want to hear it because you're losing at times by 30 points to a team that you should beat. And a really confusing, puzzling loss, one that they'll certainly go to the whiteboard with, as we know that they like that. And I know it's, negative Nancy, I'm just throwing all of this stuff on you and talking about everything that went wrong. This is a team I think will show that maturity. I think they will go back to the drawing board and try to find where they can grow in that maturity, because the team needs it. And I think they have the components. They have the players on this team to get everybody right. It's just you don't have much time to have a game like this, because a game like this ends your season after Georgia. So certainly not a ton of time to figure out why this happened and then to correct it. But if any team's going to do that, it will certainly be Kim Caldwell's team. We'll have much more on this game and coming up next week with the Georgia Bulldogs coming to town for senior night. So that'll certainly be a fun time and a lot going on Rocky Top with everything else. So make sure you subscribe. Please support me in that way. It truly does mean a lot. Until then, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.